Ethan Hale did not think of himself as brave. He was 32, worked long hours on construction sites, and lived alone in a small rented house near the old apartment blocks. His life was simple. Wake up early, drink cheap coffee, work with his hands, come home tired. He did not look for trouble, heroes, or miracles. That night, he was walking home later than usual. The city was quiet in the way it only became after midnight. Streetlights buzzed softly. Windows were dark, except for a few where television still glowed. Ethan had his jacket pulled tight and his thoughts on nothing important. He was thinking about dinner and sleep. Then he heard a sound that did not belong. It was not loud, just a soft, sharp cry, too small, too high. Ethan stopped walking. He listened again. The sound came from above. He looked up at the apartment building beside him. It was old, with cracked concrete balconies stacked like boxes. Most of them were empty, filled only with plants or broken chairs. On the fourth floor, he saw movement. A small shape stood at the edge of a balcony railing. A child. Ethan's breath caught in his chest. The child was very small, maybe 4 or 5 years old, too small to be alone. She was barefoot, wearing a thin shirt that fluttered in the night wind. She leaned forward, tiny hands gripping the railing, her body tilted in a way that made Ethan's stomach drop. "Hey," he called out softly, not wanting to scare her. "Hey, kid." The child turned her head. Even from the street, Ethan saw her eyes. They reflected the light in a strange way, bright and clear, almost glowing. For a second his mind tried to explain it away. Bad lighting, tired eyes. The child looked down, her fingers slipped. Time did something strange then. It did not stop, but it stretched. Ethan saw the exact moment when her grip failed, when her small body tipped forward, when gravity took over. He did not think. He ran. Ethan dropped his bag and sprinted toward the building. His boots slammed against the pavement. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. He reached the spot beneath the balcony just as the child fell. She was fast, faster than he expected, faster than any normal fall should feel. Ethan threw his arms out. The impact hit him like a truck. The air rushed out of his lungs as he staggered back. Pain exploded through his shoulders and chest, but his arms closed around the child and he fell to his knees, rolling to the side to protect her head. They hit the ground hard. For a moment there was only silence. Then Ethan gasped, sucking in air, his vision swimming. His arms burned, his ribs screamed, but the weight in his arms was light. The child was crying, but she was alive. People began to shout. Doors opened. Lights flicked on. Someone screamed for an ambulance. Ethan looked down at the child. Up close, she was even stranger. Her hair was dark and soft, but her ears were not human. They were small and pointed, hidden partly by her hair. Her eyes, wide with fear, had narrow pupils that shrank rapidly in the light. She looked at him, not like a child looks at a stranger, but like an animal caught between fear and trust. "You're okay," Ethan said, his voice rough. "You're safe." The child reached out and grabbed his shirt with surprising strength. Sirens wailed in the distance. Later the doctors would say Ethan was lucky. Bruised ribs, a cracked shoulder, nothing permanent. They would say his timing had been perfect, his stance just right, his body strong enough. They would not explain how a human man caught a falling child from 4 stories up and lived. Ethan did not try to explain it either. At the hospital, the child was taken away quickly. Too quickly. Men and women in plain clothes arrived before the police. They spoke calmly, showed badges Ethan could not read clearly, and asked him to rest. When Ethan asked about the child, they said only that her family had been found. "You did a good thing," one of them told him. "Try to forget the rest." That was 3 days ago. Now Ethan sat on his porch, nursing his shoulder, staring at the quiet street. Since the fall, things had not felt right. He felt watched. It started small, a sense of eyes on him when he walked to work, shadows that moved when they should not. Sounds on the roof at night, soft, careful steps, too light to be animals. On the second night, he found claw-like marks on the wooden fence behind his house. Deep, clean cuts as if made by metal. He told himself it was vandals or wild dogs, but there were no dogs in the area. On the third day, the neighborhood cats began to gather. They sat along the sidewalk near his house, watching, not fighting, not begging, just watching. Their tails flicked slowly. Their eyes followed him wherever he moved. Ethan tried to laugh it off. "I'm not feeding you," he muttered. The cats did not move. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned orange, Ethan felt it again. That pressure, that awareness. He stepped outside. Across the street, three women stood near a parked car. They were tall, too still. Their clothes were simple, dark, and practical. They did not speak to each other. They did not use their phones. They just stood there, watching his house. Ethan frowned. He shifted his weight, trying not to wince. One of the women turned her head toward him. Her eyes locked onto his. They were gold, not brown, not hazel, gold. She did not smile, she did not wave. She simply watched. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to go back inside. Instead, he stood his ground. He had caught a falling child with these arms. He would not run from three strangers on a sidewalk. After a long moment, the woman looked away. The three of them turned and walked down the street, their movements smooth and quiet. Too smooth. Almost like predators moving through tall grass. Ethan exhaled slowly. That night he dreamed of falling stars and burning eyes. He dreamed of claws gripping stone. He dreamed of a small child curled against his chest, purring softly like a cat. He woke just before dawn. Something was on his roof. Ethan grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, his heart pounding. He shone the light upward. Nothing, but the feeling did not leave. High above, unseen by human eyes, three figures crouched on the roof. Their ears flicked. Their tails were still. "The human is awake," one of them whispered, her voice barely a breath. "He is aware," said another, "more than expected." The third, the one with gold eyes, looked down at the house with something close to respect. "He did not hesitate," she said softly. "He did not know. He did not gain, yet he chose to act." Below them, Ethan stood in the cold morning air, unaware of the judgment being passed. Somewhere far beyond Earth, a signal pulsed through the dark. A record was marked. A human had touched what was sacred. And the galaxy would not ignore that. Ethan tried to return to normal life. That was the hardest part. He went back to work after the doctor cleared him for light duty. The construction site felt the same: dust, noise, shouting. But something inside him had changed. He noticed things more now: movements, sounds, patterns. It was like his body remembered the fall, remembered acting without thinking, and refused to go back to sleep. The men at work joked about him being a hero. "Man caught a kid out of the air," one of them said. "That's movie stuff." Ethan just shrugged and kept working. He did not tell them about the ears, or the eyes, or the way the child had held onto him like he was the only solid thing in the world. During breaks, he felt eyes on him, not human eyes. He would turn suddenly, expecting to catch someone staring, but there was never anyone there. Just the sound of wind moving through half-built walls, just the creak of metal beams. On the third day back, he noticed scratches on his truck. They were long and clean, running down the side door, too deep for keys, too straight for accidents. He touched them, feeling a chill run through his fingers. That night the dreams returned. He dreamed he was standing in a wide field under a purple sky. Tall shapes moved in the distance, their eyes glowing like stars. He could hear breathing all around him, slow, steady, powerful. He was not afraid in the dream, but he felt small. When he woke, his heart was calm, but his house was not. A soft thump came from the backyard. Ethan reached for the flashlight again, his hand steady this time. He moved slowly, quietly. The back door opened with a soft creak. The yard was empty. Then he noticed the fence. Fresh marks cut into the wood, newer than before, deeper. At the base of the fence sat something small and dark. Ethan crouched and picked it up. It was a metal charm, warm to the touch. Smooth. shaped like a circle with three curved lines inside it like claw marks forming a symbol. It did not look human. There were no screws, no seams. He turned it over in his hand. It vibrated once softly like a heartbeat. Ethan dropped it. The vibration stopped. He stared at it for a long moment, then picked it up again. This time nothing happened. "You're losing it," he muttered. But he did not throw it away. The next evening the three women returned. This time they did not stay across the street. Ethan was cooking when the feeling hit him again, that pressure like the air itself was watching. He turned toward the window and saw them standing at the edge of his yard. They did not try to hide. The woman with gold eyes stepped forward first. Up close, Ethan could see the truth clearly now. Her ears were human-shaped at a glance, but they sat slightly higher and the edges were sharp. Her pupils were narrow slits. Her movements were controlled, balanced, ready. The other two were similar, each different in small ways. One had silver-gray eyes and a long scar along her jaw. The third was shorter, her dark eyes alert, her hands resting loosely at her sides. They stopped a few steps from the porch. "Can I help you?" Ethan asked. His voice was calm. He was proud of that. The gold-eyed woman studied him for a long moment. Then she lowered her head slightly. Not a bow, something else, a sign of respect. "You may," she said. Her voice was low and clear. "If you choose to listen." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Start talking." "You saved a life," she said. "Not just a child, a cub." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I saved a kid who fell, that's it." The silver-eyed woman stepped forward. "Your species uses many words. Ours uses fewer. That one matters." "The child," the gold-eyed woman continued, "is Felari." "So are we." Ethan waited. "She is under our protection," the shorter one said. "She always was. We failed." The word carried weight. Shame. Ethan leaned against the porch railing. His shoulder ached, but he ignored it. "Then why was she alone on a balcony in the middle of the night?" Silence fell. Finally, the gold-eyed woman spoke again. "Because Earth is not simple. Because hiding among humans is dangerous in ways we did not fully understand." "And now?" Ethan asked. "Now," she said, "she lives." Something in her voice shifted. Gratitude, relief. Ethan exhaled slowly. "Good." The women exchanged looks. "You do not ask for reward," the silver-eyed one said. "You do not ask for answers. This is unusual." "I just wanted to make sure she was okay," Ethan said. "That's all." "That is why we are here," the gold-eyed woman said. Ethan straightened. "Meaning?" "By our law," she said. "A being who saves a cub without knowledge, without promise, without instinct to gain is marked." The word made Ethan uncomfortable. "Marked how?" The shorter woman pointed to his pocket. Ethan froze. Slowly, he reached inside and pulled out the metal charm. All three women inhaled sharply. "It chose you," the silver-eyed one said quietly. Ethan stared at the charm. "I found this in my yard." "It found you," the gold-eyed woman corrected. Before Ethan could respond, the air changed. The cats that usually gathered on the street scattered suddenly, hissing and fleeing. The night grew tense, heavy. Ethan felt it like pressure on his chest. The gold-eyed woman's posture shifted instantly. Her shoulders squared, her eyes narrowed. "Inside," she ordered. Ethan did not argue. He turned and moved quickly back into the house. The women followed, silent and fast. The moment the door closed, something struck the roof hard. The house shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan's heart pounded. What the hell was that? "Hunters," the silver-eyed woman said. "Not of our pride." Another impact hit the side of the house. Wood cracked. The shorter woman moved to the window and peeked out. "They found him faster than expected." "Him?" Ethan said. "You," the gold-eyed woman replied, "because you are visible now." A shadow passed over the window, large and wrong. Ethan swallowed. "I didn't ask for this." "No," she said, "but you earned it." There was a crash as something landed in the yard. Heavy footsteps followed, not careful like the Felari. These were loud, confident, predators that did not fear being seen. The gold-eyed woman turned to Ethan. "Stay here." She moved for the door. Ethan grabbed her arm. She looked at him sharply. You said I'm marked, he said. Then I'm part of this. For a moment she studied him, then she nodded once. Very well, she said. Then learn quickly. The door burst open. A tall shape filled the doorway, armored and massive, eyes glowing red. It looked down at Ethan like he was nothing. The Felari moved. They were blurs of motion, fast, precise, deadly without being brutal. The intruder roared, swinging a heavy arm, but missed. The silver-eyed woman leapt, claws flashing, cutting deep into armor joints. Sparks flew. Ethan backed away, his mind racing. The intruder turned toward him, too slow. Ethan grabbed a heavy metal rod from the corner and swung with everything he had. The blow connected with the creature's head. It staggered, surprised. That was enough. The gold-eyed woman struck, driving the creature back through the doorway and into the night. Silence followed. The women stood still, listening. Then the gold-eyed woman turned to Ethan. You did not hesitate, she said again. Even now. Ethan's hands shook. Someone was in my house. A small smile touched her lips. Yes, she said. And you stood. Outside, distant sounds faded as quickly as they had come. The gold-eyed woman looked toward the stars. They will come again, she said, and next time they will not test. Ethan looked down at the charm in his hand. Then, he said quietly, you'd better tell me everything. Above them, unseen, the night sky watched, and far away, other eyes began to turn toward Earth. Morning came slowly, like the world was unsure if it wanted to wake up. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, a cup of cold coffee in front of him. He had not slept. Every sound outside made his muscles tight. His house felt smaller now, like thin walls between him and something much bigger. The three Felari women stood quietly in his living room. They had not moved much since the attack. One watched the windows. One stood near the back door. The gold-eyed one, clearly their leader, stood near Ethan, her attention fully on him. You said you'd detail me everything, Ethan said. Yes, she replied. But understand this first. Once you know, there is no returning to ignorance. Ethan let out a tired breath. That ship sailed when something tried to break through my door, she nodded. Fair. She placed one hand on her chest. My name is Sarian. I am a shield of the Felari pride. She pointed to the silver-eyed woman. This is Kale. Sarian met his eyes. You. That made his stomach twist. I'm not important, Kale snorted softly. You saved a royal cub, that makes you important, Tessa added, and rare. Sarian raised a hand and the others fell silent. The child you saved, she said, is named Lura. She is the daughter of the Pride Regent. Ethan leaned back in his chair. So, a princess. Sarian tilted her head. That is your word, yes. Ethan rubbed his face. Why Earth? Because humans are underestimated, Sarian said. And because your world is loud, full of signals. Easy to hide in. Kale's jaw tightened. We were wrong. Ethan remembered the child's eyes, the way she had clung to him. She wasn't supposed to be alone, he said. No, Sarian replied quietly. She was not. Silence settled. Then Ethan asked the question that had been sitting in his chest since the night of the fall. What does marked mean? Sarian looked at the charm in his hand. That, she said, is a kin mark. Ethan turned it slowly. It doesn't look like a weapon. It is not, Tessa said. It is a record. A promise, Kale added. Sarian continued. Among the Felari, cubs are sacred. They are protected by instinct, law, and blood. If a being of another species saves a cub knowingly, it is respected. If they save one for reward, it is forgotten. She stepped closer. But if a being saves a cub without knowing what it is, without fear, without benefit, then the pride recognizes them as kin. Ethan swallowed. Family. Yes, Sarian said. The word hit him harder than any alien attack. Family. He had lost his parents young. No siblings, no one waiting for him anywhere. He had learned to stand alone because it was easier. And the hunters, he asked. The thing that came into my house, Kale's expression darkened. The Varkesh. Slavers, Tessa said. Collectors. Sarian nodded. They hunt rare bonds, rare bloodlines, rare events. A human marked by Felari law is valuable. Ethan felt anger rise. "So I'm bait." "No," Sarian said firmly. "You are under our protection." Kale looked away. "Which has already failed once." Sarian's voice sharpened. "Enough." Kale stiffened but said nothing. Ethan noticed that, the tension. These were not mindless warriors, they carried guilt. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. Sarian took a slow breath. "We relocate you." "No." The word came out instantly. All three looked at him. "I'm not running," Ethan said. "This is my home, my neighbors, my job." "You will die," Tessa said bluntly. "Maybe," Ethan replied, "but I won't disappear." Sarian studied him for a long time, then she nodded once. "This," she said, "is why the Mark accepted you." That afternoon they trained him, not with weapons, with awareness. They showed him how to listen differently, how to feel changes in the air, how to notice when animals reacted strangely, how to trust the part of himself that had moved before thought. "You are not strong like us," Kale said, "but you are stubborn." Ethan smirked. "Yeah, that's what people say." Tessa showed him how to move quietly across gravel without sound. Sarian taught him how to breathe when fear tried to lock his body. "You do not erase fear," she said. "You move with it." By nightfall, Ethan was exhausted. Then the sky changed. It was subtle, a flicker in the stars, a wrongness. Sarian looked up sharply. "They are watching," she said. A low hum rolled through the air, too deep to hear properly, felt more than heard. Windows rattled. Dogs barked across the neighborhood. Ethan stepped onto his porch. Down the street, a shape uncloaked. It was not a ship like in movies. No smooth metal, no bright lights. It looked alive. Angled, sharp. As if grown, not built. People came out of their houses, confused. "Inside," Sarian ordered quietly, but it was too late. A voice filled the street, cold and amplified. "Human Ethan Hale, you are claimed." Fear spread like fire. Ethan stepped forward. "No," Sarian snapped, grabbing his arm. He looked at her. "If they want me, hiding won't help." She searched his face. Then she released him. Ethan stood at the edge of his lawn, heart pounding, hands open and empty. "I'm right here," he shouted. The air shimmered and a tall Varkesh stepped into view. It was larger than the one before, heavier armor, more confidence. "You have been marked by Felari law," the creature said. "That mark is transferable," Kale hissed softly. Ethan felt sick. "You want to cut it out of me?" "Yes." Ethan's fear tried to take control. He breathed. The way Sarian taught him. "No," he said, "you don't get it." The Varkesh tilted its head. "I didn't save that kid because of laws," Ethan continued, "or pride or reward. I saved her because she was falling." The creature laughed. A harsh, metallic sound. "That makes you weak." Ethan shook his head. "That makes you blind." Sarian stepped beside him, then Kale, then Tessa, 3 Felari, 1 human. Neighbors watched from windows, phones recorded, whispers spread. The Varkesh hesitated. "This world is not yet claimed," it said. "You protect 1 human." Sarian's eyes burned gold. "We protect kin." The charm in Ethan's hand grew warm, then hot. Light spread from it, soft but undeniable. The Varkesh took a step back. "This is impossible," it said. Ethan felt something shift inside him, not power, not strength, connection. "You don't own courage," he said quietly. "You don't own choice." The Varkesh snarled and vanished. The ship cloaked and disappeared as if it had never been there. Silence fell. Then someone clapped. 1 person. Then another. Ethan turned, shocked, as his neighbors stepped out into the street. Confused, afraid, but still there. Sarian looked at Ethan with something new in her eyes, respect and awe. "You stood before them," she said. "Open, unarmed." Ethan's legs finally gave out. He sat down hard on the porch steps, laughing weakly. "Guess I'm really in this now," he said. Sarian nodded. "Yes," she replied. "Now the galaxy knows." High above Earth, signals spread. A report was sent. A human had been marked. And he had not broken. Ethan woke the next morning to the same quiet street, but nothing felt normal anymore. The charm on his desk seemed to hum softly, as if reminding him that he was no longer just a man in a small house. He was part of something far larger. Sarian, Kale, and Tessa moved silently around the house, preparing for the day. Their presence was calm, controlled, but the tension in the air was thick. Ethan could feel it, even without looking. "You trained well yesterday," Sarian said, her gold eyes on him. "You moved with awareness, with instinct. That is rare for a human." "I didn't do anything special," Ethan replied. "I was scared, but I didn't run." "That is what matters," Sarian said. "Bravery is not the absence of fear, it is action despite it." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "I just want to live a normal life. I don't want this galaxy politics following me around." "You do not get to choose that now," Kale said bluntly. "The Varkesh have marked you as prey. They will not stop until they understand the connection you hold." Tessa stepped forward, holding a small device. "We have a plan," she said. "We move today. The Pride cannot stay here. It is too obvious. We relocate you to a safe house while we negotiate with the other Felari factions." Ethan hesitated. "Safe house, so I run anyway." "No," Sarian said firmly. "You survive. That is not running, it is preparation." Ethan sighed but nodded. He understood. By mid-morning they were outside, moving with care. The neighborhood seemed ordinary, but Ethan's mind had changed. Every shadow, every sound, every movement felt significant. He noticed a cat flick its tail strangely and a bird shift its perch as they passed. The world had grown sharper, alive in ways he had never understood. The drive to the safe house was tense. Sarian navigated, Kale monitored the area, and Tessa communicated through devices he could barely comprehend. The streets felt heavier, as if they carried eyes that watched from above. When they arrived, Ethan stepped out. The safe house was small, hidden among trees, reinforced in ways that looked almost alien. Walls were thicker than normal, windows almost invisible. He realized that no one could find them here, not humans, not aliens, not even the most careful observers. "You'll stay here," Sarian said, "for now." "Alone?" Ethan asked, gesturing to the three women around him. "You will not be alone," Tessa said. "We remain always." Ethan exhaled slowly. The weight of their words settled on him. They were serious. Their loyalty, their watchfulness, it was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The first night in the safe house was quiet, too quiet. Ethan lay in the bed, staring at the ceiling, listening. He could hear the faint hum of energy from the walls, feel the subtle vibrations in the air. He had learned to sense it now, and it made him uneasy. At dawn, the silence was broken. Sarian called him to the training room. "You will need more than awareness," she said. "You will need strategy." Ethan frowned. "Strategy? I'm a construction worker, I'm not a soldier." "You are human," Kale said. "That is enough." Ethan blinked. "What does that even mean?" "You think linearly," Tessa explained. "You adapt, you improvise, you survive. That is your strength. You have done what our kind cannot easily do." Ethan shook his head. "I just caught a kid who fell." "And saved a life," Sarian said. "That life is part of the Pride. That choice marked you. And now the Varkesh want what you represent." The training began. It was nothing like military drills he had imagined. Sarian led him through exercises to heighten his reflexes, test his patience, and expand his awareness. Kale taught him to move silently, using his environment. Tessa trained him in observation, teaching him to notice patterns in behavior, energy, and intent. Days passed. Ethan felt his mind stretching, expanding. His body was sore, but his confidence grew. For the first time in his life, he felt part of something. Part of a system larger than himself. Then the test came. The Varkesh returned, faster and more organized than before. Their ships hovered silently above the city, scanning, searching. Ethan could feel their presence in the air before he saw them. "They found us," Kale said calmly. "Are we ready?" Ethan asked. Sarian's eyes met his. "You are ready, you will see it yourself." The Varkesh landed outside the safe house. This time they moved with precision, not brute force. Shadows shifted along the walls. Large mechanical limbs, alien technology that seemed alive, advanced sensors everywhere. They were confident, sure that no human could oppose them. Ethan's heart pounded. He felt the fear, but he remembered Sarian's lesson. Fear was not an enemy, it was a signal. He breathed. He observed. Then the Varkesh struck. It began with a figure rushing the front door. Ethan saw the movement before it happened. He shouted, and Sarian, Kale, and Tessa responded instantly. The three women moved as one, fluid, precise, cutting off the Varkesh before they could breach the safe house. Ethan followed instinct, dodging, weaving, using what he had learned. He picked up a loose piece of reinforced metal and swung it, knocking one of the attackers back. He did not know if it hurt them, but it slowed them. That was enough. Kale's claws struck the ground, sparks flying as she disabled a mechanical limb. Tessa used the environment to her advantage, collapsing a wall segment that blocked the attacker's approach. Sarian moved with power and precision, driving them back. And through it all, Ethan realized something extraordinary. He was not the weakest link. The Varkesh had assumed humans were fragile, predictable. They had underestimated instinct, courage, and creativity. They had underestimated him. He felt a surge of confidence. His fear sharpened his focus. He moved faster than he thought possible, reacting to the Varkesh in ways that seemed impossible for a human. The attackers faltered. For the first time, they hesitated. They were not prepared for cooperation between human and Felari. The battle ended quickly, decisively. The Varkesh retreated, leaving the safe house intact. Ethan sank to the floor, breathing heavily. His hands shook. I did it, Sarian knelt beside him. Yes, you did. And in doing so, you proved what your kind can do when they act without hesitation. Kale added, humans are not prey, not anymore. Tessa smiled faintly. You have shown them that courage does not belong to one species. It belongs to those who choose to act. Ethan's mind reeled. For days he had felt powerless, ordinary, alone. But in the span of minutes he had changed the Varkesh's perception. He had changed their understanding of humans. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan thought about Lura, the child he had saved. He thought about the Felari, about the Varkesh, and about himself. One small act of instinct, one choice to reach out and save a life, had led him to this point. He was no longer just Ethan Hale. He was marked. He was noticed. He was part of something far larger than himself. Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever. Somewhere beyond Earth, other eyes watched. And for the first time, those eyes did not see a weak species. They saw possibility. Ethan realized that the battle was far from over. The Varkesh would return. Others would test him. But he no longer feared the challenges. He had learned that courage, instinct, and humanity could shift the balance, even against impossible odds. Sarian stepped into the room, her gold eyes catching the faint light. You understand now, do you? Yes, Ethan said quietly. I'm human, and that's enough. Then we continue, she said. The Pride is counting on us. The galaxy is watching, and you will stand as proof of what your kind can do. Ethan nodded. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also the spark of purpose. He had survived fear, faced impossible odds, and stood with beings far stronger than himself. And in doing so, he had shown that humanity, in its raw courage, could defy expectation. The safe house remained quiet that night, but Ethan knew the calm was only temporary. The Varkesh would return, others would come, and when they did, he would be ready. Because he had learned the truth, a human's courage is not measured by strength alone, it is measured by choice, and Ethan had chosen to stand. High above, in the silent vastness of space, signals flickered. Word spread among the stars. A human had not only survived but had turned the tide in a battle no one expected. The galaxy would remember, and Earth and its people would never again be underestimated. Ethan finally allowed himself to close his eyes, sleep coming slowly, deeply, for the first time since Lura had fallen. Tomorrow, the world and the galaxy would challenge him again. But tonight, he had learned what it meant to be more than ordinary. He had learned what it meant to be human. Ethan woke to the first soft light of dawn filtering through the safe house windows. The quiet was different this morning. Not tense, not full of waiting, different. There was still danger in the galaxy, yes, but something had shifted. He could feel it deep in his chest, a steady pulse of purpose that had grown over the last weeks. Sarian, Kale, and Tessa were already awake, moving silently through the room, checking sensors, preparing for the day. Their movements were smooth, natural, but they carried a weight that reminded Ethan of what was at stake. He was no longer just a man. He was kin-marked, part of something far larger than Earth itself. "You are ready," Sarian said softly, her gold eyes meeting his. "Today the Pride arrives," Ethan blinked. "The Pride, the Felari Council," Kale said. "They come to see you, to judge if a human may be trusted as one of their own." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "Judged, I just caught a falling child." Tessa shook her head. "It is never just one act. It is the intent, the instinct, the courage. That is why the council comes." Ethan tried to steady his breathing. He had faced the Varkesh. He had survived. He had stood beside the Felari women and proved that a human could act without hesitation. But this was different. This was not an enemy. This was a council of beings whose laws and expectations he barely understood. The sound of engines approaching broke the morning calm. Outside, in the clearing near the safe house, sleek, organic ships landed. Unlike human ships, these moved as if alive, shifting slightly as they settled. The Felari Council disembarked. Ethan saw them for the first time, tall, imposing, with fur patterns that glinted in the morning sun. Their eyes were sharp, alert, and scanning every detail of the surroundings. Sarian stepped forward. "They are here," she said. "You will stand with us." Ethan followed, stepping into the open. His heart thumped in his chest, but he kept his gaze steady. The council members stopped a few meters away, their eyes fixing on him. A silence stretched for what felt like minutes. Then the eldest of them, a massive figure with silver fur and amber eyes, spoke. "You are Ethan Hale," the council elder said, "the human who caught the cub." "Yes," Ethan replied, his voice calm but firm. "I am." The council's gaze swept over him, taking in his scars, his posture, and the faint aura he carried from the kin mark. Ethan felt their scrutiny as if it were a physical weight, yet he did not flinch. The elder nodded slightly. "You did this without knowledge, without promise, without reward." Ethan shrugged. "I just did what I had to do." "That is why you are here," another council member said, a female with gold-tipped fur. "A human acting without fear, without hesitation. Such a being is rare among your species." The word struck Ethan harder than any praise he had ever received. Rare. He had never thought of himself as anything more than ordinary. And yet here he was, recognized by an entire alien council. Sarian stepped beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Speak truth," she whispered. "Let them see who you are." Ethan inhaled deeply. "I saved her because she was falling. I did not know she was a cub. I did not think about reward. I did not think about recognition. I only knew that I could act, and I did." The council members exchanged glances, subtle but powerful. One of them tilted her head. "Then you have shown that humanity is capable of instinctive honor." Ethan's mind raced. This was beyond him, beyond Earth. This was not just survival, it was recognition, validation, a connection between species. Then from the back a small shape appeared. Lura, the cub he had saved. She was not alone, her golden eyes matched Sarian's. She stepped forward, tiny but confident, her small claws clicking softly against the ground. The council's attention shifted to her. "Child," the elder said, "you survived." "I did," Lura said, her voice clear and confident for someone so small, "because he saved me." Ethan's chest tightened. He knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "It's good to see you safe," he said. She stepped closer and placed a small paw against his hand. The kinmark charm glowed softly between them. Ethan felt warmth, connection, a bond deeper than anything he had known. "You may speak," Lura said, turning to the council. This human is kin. He chose without thought. He protected without fear. He is ours. A murmur ran through the council. This was unprecedented. No human had ever been recognized in this way, let alone claimed as kin by the cub of a regent. The elder stepped forward. So it is. Then by Felari law, Ethan Hale is recognized as kin-marked. He is no longer an outsider. He is trusted. He is part of the pride. Ethan's mind reeled. Part of the pride. A human, it was impossible. And yet here it was. The Felari had accepted him. A stranger, a human, unarmed and untrained in their ways, had earned a place among them. Sarian, Kale, and Tessa exhaled softly. Relief and pride were visible in their expressions. They had guided him, protected him, trained him, and now their trust in humanity was affirmed. Lura looked up at Ethan. "You will not leave, will you?" "No," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." The council members nodded, satisfied. They had seen what they needed to see. They understood that the humans, though young in their development, had qualities that could not be measured by strength or technology alone, qualities that mattered: courage, instinct, choice. The Varkesh would come again, Ethan knew. Other threats would rise, but the galaxy had seen what humans could do, and that would make a difference. Ethan turned to Sarian. "What now?" "Now," she said, "we continue. The pride will train, guide, and protect. You will learn, you will grow, and you will show the galaxy what humans can do." Kale added, "You will not be alone. You have the pride and you have us." Tessa smiled faintly. "And you have your choice. That is your greatest strength." Ethan looked around at the Felari, at Lura, at the ships waiting silently. For the first time he understood the full weight of his actions. One choice, one instinct, one act of courage had changed everything. He smiled. "Then let's get started." The council watched as the human walked forward alongside the Felari. They did not see fear. They did not see hesitation. They saw determination, strength, and the spark of something greater, an ordinary human capable of extraordinary choices. As the sun rose higher in the sky, lighting the safe house and the surrounding forest, Ethan felt the connection more deeply. The stars above were no longer distant. They were close, watching, aware, waiting. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Varkesh would hear of this day. And they would understand that humanity could not be underestimated. Ethan looked down at Lura, who glanced up at him with those golden eyes. He nodded. She understood. "Let's go home," he said quietly. The Felari Council murmured in approval. This was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for him, but for Earth, for humanity, for the galaxy. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Hale felt truly ready. He had been marked, he had been tested, and he had stood unshaken as a human among stars. The galaxy, it seemed, would never forget him.